I'd like to add our tributes from these benches to the train crew and others who responded so heroically, and our thoughts and indeed our prayers remain with all those who have been impacted. The traumatic effect of being involved in an incident like that in an enclosed space doesn't just go away after a short period of time. Also declare my unpaid role as co-chair of the National Police Ethics Committee. I'm really grateful that information was got out early about the perpetrator. Not just the fact it wasn't terrorism, but other information that we've known over the last year since Southport is vital to calming some of the public fears that there are, and that's something that my Ethics Committee has been discussing at length in recent times. Like many noble lords, I can see Noble Lord Goddard over there, who may well want to intervene shortly. I travel a lot on trains that don't stop for quite a long distance. They've got many carriages. I would have made some of the points that have already been made behind. But it is about having enough first responders on those trains throughout the journey who are equipped to respond effectively. My trains do have CCTV in every carriage. It usually works. That helps. I think we've had facial recognition technology referred to. I think that does need to be managed very carefully. Many of the models that I've certainly seen still have an inbuilt ethnic bias that's inherited from the fact that in their original training, their algorithms, it's often based on the faces of white men like me, and they struggle sometimes to distinguish people from other groups within society, and that leads to too many false positives, and then people who are entirely innocent having their lives interrupted by being stopped and accused of some offence. I think the same, again, if we're to increase stop and search, there's no problem with that as long as we ensure that officers who are carrying that out are trained in unconscious bias, so they're making sure they're not carrying that out in a way that's unfair. Finally, one of the ministers, the Noble Lord and Minister, would agree with me that crime deterrence, knife crime and other crime, is driven much more by fear of detection and arrest than by the theoretical length of a maximum sentence.
I'm grateful to the Right Reverend Prelate. A number of us in this House continue to spend lots of periods of times on trains, and again I think it is a very interesting point that the Right Reverend Prelate makes about the distance between stops. The train I get every week, normally the last stop before London is Stafford, when there's a lot of journeys between that time, and a lot of carriages and a lot of individuals. I did have a very brief conversation with my noble friend Lord Hendy, who said that the most important thing that he expects on a train is for the ability to have contact with the driver, so that the driver can take immediate action, such as was taken in this instance by diverting the train to a non-mainline station, Huntingdon, where police and resources were made available. But I know that my noble friend has heard what the Right Reverend Prelate has said on staffing issues, and obviously will reflect on that as part of his normal day-to-day duties. The question of stop and search is an interesting one. I've got some statistics which again I hope will help the noble lord who did raise this issue, and I may not have given him as fuller answer as I perhaps should have done at that particular time. In the last year, 16,066 stop and searches led to an offensive weapon or firearm being found, but that interestingly was only 3% of all stop and search figures where weapons were found on the individual. So it's an interesting statistic where we can make of that what we will in slower time, but only 3% of actual stop and searches found a weapon on the individual who was stopped and searched. Question of facial recognition is important. We have as a government invested in live facial recognition. We've had some new vans, 10 in number, static location pilots. We've undertaken piloting of this, and what it does do is it saves a lot of police time. And we need to ensure that we do trial that, to ensure that the points that the Right Reverend Prelate has made with relation to facial recognition and characteristics is taken into account. I think the main thing it will do is if there are offenders who are convicted offenders who are known to the system, then potentially that will help draw down the ability to identify them quicker in a large crowd than would be the case otherwise. But we are undertaking a public consultation on a new bespoke legal framework for law enforcement on the use of biometrics, facial recognition and similar technologies, and that will be launched very soon. And I think for the Right Reverend Prelate then there's an opportunity for him and others to raise those issues of interest and concern, so that they can form part of our final judgment on the benefits versus some of the challenges.
I agree with everything that's been said about the courage